Austrian artist Gustav Klimt's portrait of Elisabeth Lederer has become the most expensive work of modern art to sell at auction.
Only at Sotheby's, here in the Breuer, the Klimt Julian is yours. Congratulations. Congratulations.
The World War I era painting sold for $366 million after a 20-minute bidding war in New York. The 6-foot-tall canvas depicts the 20-year-old heiress of one of Vienna's wealthiest families. The piece was seized by the Nazis after Austria's annexation in 1938, before resurfacing in the early 1980s. It then entered the private holding of the billionaire heir to the Estee Lauder cosmetic fortune, Leonard A, who died in June. Well, with more now, I'm joined by Donna Brett, who is an Associate Professor in Art History at the University of Sydney. Donna, thank you very much for your time.
Hi, Kat. Nice to see you.
Now, as we just heard there and saw there, 6 bidders battled it out over 20 minutes for this painting. It underwent the hammer as the second most expensive artwork ever sold at auction. Is it worth $366 million?
Well, clearly, because someone paid for it. Yes, absolutely. Look, those market prices are always driven by demand. And one of the reasons for the demand of Klimt is because he's like one of the most famous artists of that period. And he was part of the Vienna Successionist movement, was associated obviously with some of the key artists of the time, but also he had a very short life. So he died in 1918 from the Spanish flu. So there aren't exactly hundreds of paintings out there. So the rarity of it also drives the price, but also thinking about where it's come from, coming from the Lauder Collection. The Lauders are a really fascinating family where they have collected enormous amounts of art over the years. And one of the most famous other works by Klimt, of a portrait by Adele Bloch-Bauer, was actually purchased by Leonard's brother, Ronald.
It's extraordinary, isn't it, when you look at the Lauder's collection? You've got Klimt's, Matisse, Picasso, Van Gogh's and Edvard Munch to speak. I'm going to ask you about that in a moment, but if we can come back to this painting that sold, it's mesmerising in its scale and also its subject. Can you explain who Elisabeth Lederer was and her relationship with Klimt?
Well, Elisabeth was the daughter of one of Klimt's greatest patrons, Serena and August Lederer. Well, as you might know, in that period of time, patrons actually supported artists throughout their life, and some of them were paid basically an income in order to make paintings, but also that they supported them in terms of purchasing works of art. So this was commissioned, and many of these portraits by Klimt at the time were commissioned by quite wealthy patrons. And it's of their daughter and Elisabeth. And it tells really a story in terms of not just who she is as a young woman, but also about Klimt's fascination with Asian art, her status as someone of an important family, and thinking about that connection between the East and West. And the figures that surround this painting really tell that story in terms of the exchange, the cultural exchange between these two areas of the world.
It's got. If I might just stop you there, Donna, because I want to ask you about, you know, this extraordinary history, not just of the subject, but where this painting has travelled throughout the world. It was looted by the Nazis, nearly destroyed by fire, and it eventually pretty much came to save Elisabeth's life. Can you tell me about, briefly, because we could be here for hours.
Oh, we could be here for hours.
Yeah, I mean, you do years of university lecturing on this, but yeah, just the history of all those things I just mentioned there.
Look, so it was painted in, as you know, around the First World War. It was seized by the National Socialists, and there were several reasons why these kinds of paintings were seized by the Nazis at the time. And one of them is for Hitler's own collection that he was preparing to make a museum in Linz in Austria, and he wanted the best of of art, regardless of when or where it came from. And they also seized works of art from a major public collection. So this was actually part of course, the Lederer family collection. Because they were Jewish, it was seized by the Nazis. But the interesting thing is that it was actually used as evidence by Elisabeth to say that she wasn't of pure Jewish heritage, and that she claimed that Klimt was actually her father. And she did this by writing sort of a memoir, kind of obviously as a slight fib, to say that this is evidence, the fact that they were connected and that she had Aryan blood. And the Aryan blood, of course, is a pure Germanic sort of heritage. So it saved her life in that regard. And it was, of course, then seized. But, I mean, the story of this work is extraordinary. And so then, of course, it went from Germany, it ended up in Vienna, it was seized by the regional court in Vienna, and then it was restituted to the family. So the fact that it actually survived the war and it survived that seizure was actually really fascinating in itself. So many paintings, as you have alluded to, were destroyed. And also many were sold off by the Nazis, and they've ended up in major collections around the world, including the Tate Modern, New York MoMA, Metropolitan Museum, etc.
And then it made its way into the hands of the Lauder Collection. It's a fascinating story. Very briefly, Donna, if you had a lazy $366 million, would you have bought it?
Oh, I'd be quite tempted.
You are the art historian. Donna Brett from the University of Sydney. Thank you very much.
Nice to chat.